The crash. Captain Lyra Chen gripped the controls of the Starship Horizon as alarms blared throughout the bridge. The ship shuddered violently, systems failing one by one as they plummeted towards an uncharted planet below. Status report. Lyra barked, her dark eyes scanning the chaotic readouts before her. Her first officer, Jack Morrison, frantically worked at his console. Main engines are offline, Captain. Auxiliary power at 15% and dropping. We're caught in the planet's gravity well. There's no way to break free. Lyra's mind raced. The Horizon had been on a routine patrol of the outer colonies when they detected an anomalous energy signature. Upon investigating, their systems had suddenly gone haywire, as if struck by an invisible electromagnetic pulse. Now, they were hurtling towards an unknown world with no way to stop their descent. All hands, brace for impact. Lyra shouted into the ship-wide comm. Engineering. Divert all remaining power to inertial dampeners and forward shields. The planet's surface loomed large in the viewscreen, a tapestry of deep purples and blues, with no visible oceans but strange, shimmering patches that looked almost like liquid metal. Lyra had never seen anything like it in all her years of space exploration. With a bone-jarring crash, the Horizon plowed into the alien landscape. Lyra was thrown from her chair, her head slamming against a bulkhead. As consciousness faded, her last thought was of her crew and the unknown world that now held their fate in its hands. When Lyra awoke, the first thing she noticed was the silence. Gone were the familiar hums and beeps of the ship's systems. Instead, there was only an eerie quiet, punctuated by the occasional groan of stressed metal. She pushed herself up, wincing at the throbbing pain in her head. The bridge was a mess of sparking consoles and scattered debris. Jack lay unconscious nearby, a nasty gash on his forehead, but his chest rising and falling steadily. "Jack," Lyra said, shaking him gently. "Wake up. We need to assess the damage." As Jack stirred, Lyra made her way to the nearest functioning console. The readings were grim. Life support was operating on emergency power. Communications were down, and the hull had been breached in multiple locations, but they were alive, and that was something. "Captain," Jack groaned, sitting up slowly. "What happened?" "We crashed," Lyra replied grimly, "on an unknown planet. We need to check on the rest of the crew and see if we can get a distress signal out." As they worked to free trapped crew members and assess their situation, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about this planet. The gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth normal, and the air, while breathable, had an odd, almost sweet scent to it. Hours passed as they set up a makeshift camp near the crash site. Of the Horizon's crew of 50, 38 had survived the impact. As night fell, a stunning display of 3 moons rising in a violet sky. Lyra called a meeting of her senior staff. "All right, people," she began, her voice steady despite the dire circumstances. "We're in a tough spot, but we're still alive. Our priority is survival and getting a distress signal out. Dr. Emerson, what's our medical situation?" The ship's chief medical officer, a stern-faced woman with graying hair, stepped forward. "We've got 12 seriously injured, but stable for now. Our medical supplies are limited. We'll need to find local alternatives soon." Lyra nodded. "Engineering." Chief Engineer Ravi Patel shook his head. "It's bad, Captain. The main reactor is completely fried. We got some solar panels we can rig up, but it'll take time. As for communications, the subspace array is destroyed. We might be able to cobble together a short-range transmitter, but anything capable of reaching Coalition space, that's going to take a miracle." Lyra absorbed the news, her mind already formulating plans. "All right. We focus on immediate survival first. Tomorrow, we'll send out scouting parties to look for water and any edible vegetation. We'll also need tow." She was cut off by a startled shout from one of the sentries. "Captain, we got company." Lyra spun around, her hand instinctively going to her sidearm. What she saw made her freeze in astonishment. Emerging from the strange, shimmering patches they'd observed from orbit were figures, humanoid, but clearly not human. They moved with an otherworldly grace, their bodies seeming to glow softly in the moonlight. As they drew closer, Lyra could make out more details. The beings were tall and slender, with skin that ranged from pale blue to deep purple. Their eyes were large and luminous, lacking pupils but filled with swirling patterns of light. Most strikingly, they seemed to float inches above the ground, their long flowing garments rippling in an unfelt breeze. One of the beings, taller than the rest and with an elaborate headdress, glided forward. It raised a hand in what Lyra hoped was a gesture of peace. "Hold your fire," Lyra ordered her crew, stepping forward to meet the alien. She took a deep breath, summoning all her diplomatic training. "I am Captain Lyra Chen of the Coalition Starship Horizon. We mean you no harm. Our ship crashed, and we are in need of assistance." The alien tilted its head, regarding Lyra with those mesmerizing eyes. Then, to her shock, it spoke, not with sounds, but directly into her mind. "We are the Aetheri," the voice echoed in Lyra's thoughts. "Your arrival was unexpected, but not unwelcome. We have long awaited the coming of those who travel the stars." Lyra struggled to maintain her composure in the face of this telepathic communication. You've been waiting for us." "Not you specifically," the Aetheri leader clarified, "but for those who might aid us in our time of need. Your crash was unfortunate, but perhaps it is also fortuitous. There is much danger on this world, Captain Lyra Chen. Dangers that we cannot face alone." A chill ran down Lyra's spine. What kind of danger? The Aetheri's mental voice grew somber. "The kind that sleeps beneath the surface, waiting to awaken. The kind that once drove our ancestors to abandon this world. But come, night falls, and it is not safe to linger in the open. We will grant you sanctuary and tell you what we know. Perhaps together we can find a way to survive and to conquer the ancient evil that lurks in the shadows of this planet." As the Aetheri led them towards a shimmering patch of what Lyra now realized was some kind of energy field, she couldn't help but feel a mix of trepidation and excitement. They were stranded on an alien world, yes, but they had also made first contact with an extraordinary species, and if what the Aetheri said was true, they were about to embark on an adventure beyond anything they could have imagined. Lyra turned to her crew, seeing the same mix of fear and wonder on their faces. "All right, people," she said, her voice firm. "Let's see what our new friends have to show us. Stay alert, stay together, and remember, we're not just survivors now. We're explorers, and we've just stepped into a whole new chapter of human history." With that, Lyra stepped into the shimmering energy field, her crew following close behind. As the strange, tingling sensation washed over her, she couldn't help but smile. Whatever lay ahead, she knew one thing for certain. It was going to be one hell of a story. Alien alliances. As Captain Lyra Chen and her crew stepped through the shimmering energy field, the world around them seemed to blur and shift. When their vision cleared, they found themselves in a vast, underground cavern that defied belief. The ceiling soared hundreds of meters above them, studded with bioluminescent crystals that bathed everything in a soft, ethereal glow. Graceful structures that seemed to be made of living crystal and light rose from the cavern floor, forming a city unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Aetheri glided effortlessly between these structures, their bodies leaving trails of sparkling energy in their wake. "By all that's holy," Jack whispered, his eyes wide with wonder. "It's beautiful." The Aetheri leader, who had introduced itself as Zephyr, gestured for them to follow. "Welcome to Lumina, the last city of the Aetheri. Here, we have hidden from the dangers that plagued the surface for countless cycles." As they walked through the alien city, Lyra's mind raced with questions. "Zephyr," she began, "you mentioned a danger on this planet. Can you tell us more about it?" Zephyr's luminous eyes dimmed slightly. "It is an ancient evil, one that our ancestors fought long ago. They called it the Void, a force of entropy and destruction that seeks to consume all life and energy. Our ancestors managed to seal it away deep beneath the planet's surface, but the seal is weakening. We fear it will soon break free. Lyra exchanged glances with her senior staff. This was far beyond anything they had expected to encounter on an uncharted world. "And you think we can help?" Lyra asked, her voice a mix of skepticism and curiosity. "Your arrival was prophesied," Zephyr replied. "Beings from beyond the stars, with the power to turn the tide against the void. We have abilities your kind would consider magical, but we lack the ingenuity and adaptability of your species. Together, we may stand a chance." As they reached a large open area that seemed to serve as a central gathering place, Lyra turned to her crew. "All right, people. We've got a lot to process here. Dr. Emerson, see if the Aetheri have any medical knowledge that might help our injured. Ravi, I want you to study their technology. Maybe we can find a way to boost our communications. The rest of you, learn what you can about this place and these people. We're going to need every advantage we can get." As they walked through the alien city, Lyra's mind raced with questions. "Zephyr," she began, "you mentioned a danger on this planet. Can you tell us more about it?" Zephyr's luminous eyes dimmed slightly. "It is an ancient evil, one that our ancestors fought long ago. They called it the Void, a force of entropy and destruction that seeks to consume all life and energy. Our ancestors managed to seal it away deep beneath the planet's surface, but the seal is weakening. We fear it will soon break free." Lyra exchanged glances with her senior staff. This was far beyond anything they had expected to encounter on an uncharted world. "And you think we can help?" Lyra asked, her voice a mix of skepticism and curiosity. "Your arrival was prophesied," Zephyr replied. "Beings from beyond the stars, with the power to turn the tide against the void. We have abilities your kind would consider magical, but we lack the ingenuity and adaptability of your species. Together, we may stand a chance." As they reached a large open area that seemed to serve as a central gathering place, Lyra turned to her crew. "All right, people. We've got a lot to process here. Dr. Emerson, see if the Aetheri have any medical knowledge that might help our injured. Ravi, I want you to study their technology. Maybe we can find a way to boost our communications. The rest of you, learn what you can about this place and these people. We're going to need every advantage we can get." Over the next few days, humans and Aetheri began to work together, slowly overcoming the barriers of their vastly different cultures and physiologies. The Aetheri, it turned out, were a species of energy beings capable of manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe in ways that seemed like magic to the humans. Ravi Patel was particularly fascinated by their technology. "Captain," he reported excitedly one day, "their entire civilization is powered by something they call Aether. It's like a form of zero-point energy, but more stable and controllable. If we could harness this, we could not only repair the horizon, but potentially revolutionize human technology." Dr. Emerson, too, had made significant breakthroughs. The Aetheri's understanding of energy fields had allowed her to develop new treatments for the injured crew members, accelerating their healing far beyond normal human capabilities. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Cultural misunderstandings and the occasional clash of egos led to tense moments. Some crew members found the Aetheri's constant telepathic presence unsettling, while some Aetheri struggled to understand human concepts like personal space and privacy. Lyra did her best to mediate these conflicts, always keeping in mind the bigger picture. They needed this alliance to work if they were going to survive whatever threat this void posed, not to mention find a way back to coalition space. As the days turned into weeks, Lyra organized expeditions to explore the planet's surface. What they found was a world of stark beauty and hidden dangers. Vast plains of crystal formations stretched as far as the eye could see, broken by deep chasms that pulsed with strange energies. Floating islands drifted lazily through the violet sky, held aloft by the same mysterious force that allowed the Aethery to fly. But there were also signs of the impending danger Zephyr had warned them about. Dark, oily patches of what the Aethery called void corruption were spreading across the landscape, withering any life they touched. Strange, shadowy creatures lurked at the edges of these corrupted areas, fleeing when approached but leaving an unmistakable sense of malevolence in their wake. It was during one of these expeditions that Lyra and her team made a startling discovery. As they crested a hill of iridescent crystal, they saw something that stopped them in their tracks: the ruins of an ancient city, far larger and more technologically advanced than anything the Aethery had shown them. "Zephyr," Lyra called out, her voice filled with awe and confusion. "What is this place?" The Aethery leader's mental voice was tinged with sadness and reverence. "This is Antiquus, the great city of the Forerunners, those who came before even our ancestors. It was they who first battled the void and created the seal that has held it at bay for eons." As they explored the ruins, the humans were amazed by the advanced technology they found, much of it still functioning after untold millennia. Holographic displays flickered to life as they passed, showing star maps of a galaxy far different from the one they knew. Strange machines hummed with power, their purpose a mystery. Ravi was beside himself with excitement. "Captain, this technology, it's centuries, maybe millennia beyond anything we have. If we can understand even a fraction of it, we might be able to create a communication device powerful enough to reach Coalition space." But as they delved deeper into the ancient city, they also found warnings. Ominous murals depicted a terrifying force of darkness spreading across worlds, consuming all in its path. And in the central chamber of what appeared to be a vast research facility, they found a holographic message left by the last of the Forerunners. The message spoke of a terrible war against the void, of desperate measures taken to seal it away, and of a prophecy that one day, when the seal began to weaken, allies from beyond the stars would arrive to finish what the Forerunners had started. As the hologram faded, Lyra looked around at her team, human and Aethery alike. She saw determination in their eyes, but also fear. They had come to this planet as crash survivors, hoping for rescue. Now, they found themselves at the center of an ancient conflict with the fate of not just this world, but potentially the entire galaxy at stake. "Well," Lyra said, her voice steady despite the weight of the revelation, "it looks like we've got our work cut out for us. Ravi, I want you and a team working on deciphering this Forerunner technology. See if you can find anything that might help us against this void. Jack, coordinate with the Aethery. We need to know everything they know about their ancestors' battle, and this seal we're supposed to reinforce." She paused, looking each of them in the eye. "I know this isn't what any of us signed up for. We're explorers and scientists, not warriors. But we're also representatives of humanity, and we've been given a chance to make a difference on a scale we never imagined. Whatever this void is, whatever's coming, we'll face it together, human and Aethery, united against the darkness." As they made their way back to Lumina, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The shadows seemed to grow longer, the wind carrying whispers just beyond the edge of hearing. Something was stirring, awakening from its ancient slumber. The real battle, Lyra realized, was just beginning. But as she looked at the determination on the faces of her crew and their new Aethery allies, she felt a surge of hope. They had come together against all odds, two species from different corners of the galaxy. If they could do that, then maybe, just maybe, they stood a chance against the cosmic horror that threatened to engulf them all. Little did they know, their every move was being observed by forces beyond their comprehension, and the true test of their newfound alliance was about to begin. Awakening threats. As weeks turned into months, the alliance between the humans and the Aethery grew stronger. The crash survivors of the horizon had integrated themselves into life in Lumina, learning to harness the strange energies of this alien world under the tutelage of their ethereal hosts. Captain Lyra Chen washed with pride as her crew adapted to their extraordinary circumstances, their innate human ingenuity complementing the Ethere's ancient wisdom in ways that continually surprised her. But beneath the surface of their progress, a creeping unease began to take hold. The signs were subtle at first, a shadow glimpsed from the corner of an eye, a sudden chill in the air where there should be none. The bioluminescent crystals that lit the vast caverns of Lumina seemed to dim, their light flickering erratically at times. It was Ensign Maria Rodriguez, a young geologist, who first brought concrete evidence of the growing threat to Lyra's attention. "Captain," she said, her voice tight with concern as she laid out a series of holographic maps on the makeshift command center table. "I've been monitoring seismic activity across the planet. There's been a significant increase in tremors originating from deep beneath the surface. And look at this." She zoomed in on a particular region, not far from the ruins of Antiquus. A pulsing red dot marked the epicenter of the tremors. "This area is showing signs of, well, I'm not sure how to describe it. It's as if the very fabric of reality is thinning." Zephyr, who had been silently observing, floated forward. "The seal is weakening." The Aetheri leader's mental voice resonated with grim certainty. "The void stirs in its prison, seeking escape." Lyra's mind raced, considering their options. "How much time do we have?" "It is difficult to say," Zephyr replied. "The process could take years, or days. The void does not adhere to the laws of time as we understand them." As if in response to Zephyr's words, a violent tremor shook the cavern. Crystals rattled in their settings, and a distant boom echoed through the underground city. Alarms began to sound, their eerie wail mixing with the confused shouts of humans and the telepathic cries of Aetheri. "Status report." Lyra barked into her comm unit. Jack's voice crackled back, tight with tension. "Captain, we've got a situation on the surface. Some kind of tear has opened up near the Antiquus ruins. We're getting readings off the charts, and there are reports of strange creatures emerging." Lyra's blood ran cold. It was happening, and far sooner than they had anticipated. "Battle stations," she ordered, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her gut. "I want all combat-capable personnel geared up and ready to move in 10 minutes. Ravi, what's the status on the Forerunner tech we've been studying?" The chief engineer's voice was breathless, as if he'd been running. "We've made some breakthroughs, Captain. We've managed to activate some of their defensive systems, and we think we found a way to strengthen the seal. But we need more time." "Time is the one thing we don't have," Lyra muttered. She turned to Zephyr. "Can your people hold off these creatures while we work on a solution?" The Aetheri's luminous eyes pulsed with determination. "We will do what we must, Captain. The Aetheri have guarded this world for eons. We will not falter now." As they rushed to prepare their defenses, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that they were grossly unprepared for what was coming. The Horizon had been a patrol ship, not a warship. They had limited weapons and even more limited combat experience. The Aetheri, for all their incredible abilities, were a peaceful species by nature. But as she watched humans and Aetheri working side by side, rigging up makeshift defenses and preparing for battle, Lyra felt a surge of hope. They might be outmatched, but they wouldn't go down without a fight. The first wave of the attack came as night fell on the surface. The tear near Antiquus had grown, a writhing black maw in reality itself. From it poured creatures that defied description. Shadowy forms that seemed to shift and change as you looked at them. Tendrils of darkness that reached out to corrupt everything they touched. The Aetheri met them head-on, their bodies glowing with power as they unleashed bolts of pure energy. Human security officers stood shoulder to shoulder with their alien allies, pulse rifles blazing. For a time, it seemed they might hold the line. But the void creatures kept coming, endless waves of darkness that threatened to overwhelm them. And with each passing hour, the tear grew larger. In the command center, Lyra coordinated the defense while simultaneously working with Ravi and a team of Aethery scientists to find a way to close the tear. The Forerunner technology they had discovered was their best hope, but it was maddeningly complex. "There has to be a way," Lyra muttered, poring over ancient schematics. "The Forerunners defeated this thing once before. We just need to figure out how." As if in answer to her desperate thoughts, a new tremor shook the cavern. But this one felt different. A moment later, Jack's voice came over the comm, filled with a mix of awe and fear. "Captain, you need to see this. The Antiquus ruins. They're activating." Lyra rushed to a view screen, her jaw dropping at the sight. The ancient city was coming to life, long dormant systems powering up in a dazzling display of light and energy. And rising from the center of the ruins was a massive structure, a tower that seemed to pierce the very sky. "The Spire of Containment," Zephyr's mental voice whispered in awe. "It was said to be the key to the Forerunners' victory. But none have been able to activate it for millennia." Lyra's mind raced. This had to be the key they were looking for. But how to use it? As if in response to her unspoken question, a holographic figure flickered to life in the center of the command center. A Forerunner, its form alien yet somehow familiar. "Greetings, inheritors." The figure spoke, its voice resonating with ancient power. "If you are seeing this message, then the void has awakened once more, and you stand as the last line of defense for this world and countless others." The hologram gestured, and a complex diagram appeared beside it. "The Spire of Containment is the linchpin of our defense against the void. It can reinforce the seal and drive back the darkness, but it requires a tremendous amount of energy to activate, more than any single species can provide." Lyra's eyes widened as understanding dawned. She turned to Zephyr, seeing the same realization in the Aethery leader's glowing eyes. "That's why the prophecy spoke of allies from the stars," Lyra breathed. "It needs both of us, human and Aethery, working together to power it." The Forerunner hologram nodded. "The strength of the physical realm, combined with the energy manipulation of the ethereal. Only together can you hope to stand against the void." As the hologram faded, leaving behind detailed instructions for activating the spire, Lyra felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. She looked around at her crew, tired, scared, but determined, and at their Aethery allies, glowing with otherworldly power. "All right, people," she said, her voice ringing with authority. "We've got a chance to end this, but it's going to take everything we've got. Ravi, I need you to coordinate with the Aethery engineers. Figure out how we can interface our technology with the spire. Jack, organize defense teams to hold off the void creatures long enough for us to get this thing operational." She paused, meeting each of their eyes in turn. "I won't lie to you. This is going to be dangerous. We're attempting something that hasn't been done in thousands of years, against an enemy we barely understand. But this is what humanity does best. We face the unknown, we adapt, and we overcome. Together with the Aethery, we're going to save this planet, and maybe the entire galaxy." As her crew rushed to carry out her orders, Lyra turned to Zephyr. "I hope your people are ready for this. We're about to make history." The Aethery leader's mental voice was solemn but tinged with hope. "We stand with you, Captain Lyra Chen. Whatever comes, we face it together." Outside, the sky had turned an ominous, roiling black. The tear in reality grew larger with each passing moment, the armies of the void pressing their advantage. But as human and Aethery prepared to make their stand at the Spire of Containment, a glimmer of hope shone in the darkness. The final battle for the fate of the planet, and perhaps the galaxy, was about to begin. Battle for survival. The world around them had become a maelstrom of chaos and darkness. The tear in reality near the ruins of Antiquus had grown to massive proportions, a gaping wound in the fabric of space-time that pulsed with malevolent energy. From its depths poured an endless stream of void creatures, their forms defying the laws of physics and sanity alike. Captain Lyra Chen stood at the base of the newly risen spire of containment, her eyes scanning the battlefield before her. Human security officers fought side by side with ethery warriors, their weapons and energy blasts carving brief moments of light in the encroaching darkness. But for every void creature they felled, two more seemed to take its place. Ravi, Lyra barked into her comm unit. "What's our status on the spire?" The chief engineer's voice came back, strained but determined. "We're making progress, Captain. The ethery energy manipulation techniques are allowing us to interface our tech with the Forerunner systems. But we're still missing something. The power output isn't nearly enough to activate the containment field." Lyra gritted her teeth. They were running out of time. Already, tendrils of void corruption were creeping across the landscape, withering everything they touched. In the distance, she could see floating islands beginning to crumble, their anti-gravity fields disrupted by the chaos. "Keep working on it," she ordered. "We'll buy you as much time as we can." Turning to Jack, who was coordinating the defense, Lyra assessed their dwindling options. "We need to push them back," she said, gesturing toward the tier. "If we can reduce the flow of void creatures, it might give us the breathing room we need to get the spire operational." Jack nodded grimly. "I've got an idea, Captain, but it's risky. We've been experimenting with combining our pulse rifle technology with ethery energy manipulation. The results have been explosive, to say the least. If we can get close enough to the tear, we might be able to destabilize it temporarily." Lyra considered for a moment, then nodded. "Do it. Take a team. Volunteers only. I'll coordinate with Zephyr to provide cover." As Jack moved to assemble his team, Lyra reached out mentally to Zephyr, still marveling at how natural the telepathic communication had become. "We need a distraction. Something big." The ethery leader's response was tinged with determination. "We have been holding back, fearing to deplete our energy reserves. But perhaps now is the time to show the full extent of our power." What happened next was a sight Lyra knew she would never forget. The ethery began to glow, their bodies becoming incandescent with energy. Then, as one, they rose into the air, forming a vast, shimmering network above the battlefield. Streams of pure energy flowed between them, building to a crescendo of light and power. With a mental shout that resonated in the minds of all present, Zephyr gave the command. The accumulated energy was released in a blinding flash, a wave of purifying light that swept across the battlefield. Void creatures shrieked and dissolved where it touched them, the corruption on the ground receding. In the wake of this awesome display, Jack and his team charged forward, wielding their jury-rigged weapons. They fought their way to the edge of the tier, battling through waves of disoriented, but still deadly void entities. Then, with a synchronized battle cry, they fired. The combined blast of human and ethery technology struck the edge of the tier. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a reality-bending shriek, the tear began to contract. It didn't close entirely, but its size reduced dramatically, stemming the tide of void creatures. Lyra allowed herself a moment of hope, but it was short-lived. From the depths of the now smaller tear emerged a new threat. A massive, writhing form of pure darkness, its very presence seeming to dim the light around it. Tendrils of void energy whipped out, smashing through their defensive lines with ease. The Void Sovereign, Zephyr's mental voice, was filled with dread. The avatar of the void itself. If it fully manifests in our reality, all is lost. Lyra watched in horror as the creature, if it could be called that, began to pull itself fully into their world. Each movement it made seemed to warp the space around it, reality buckling under its impossible form. "Ravi," Lyra shouted into her comm, "we're out of time. Whatever you're going to do with that spire, do it now." "We're still not at full power." Ravi's panicked voice came back. "We need something more, some kind of catalyst to jumpstart the reaction." As if in answer to their desperation, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. But this wasn't the chaotic shaking caused by the void's intrusion. This was a steady rhythmic pulse, like the beating of a colossal heart. The spire of containment began to glow, patterns of light racing up its surface, and from its peak, a beam of energy shot into the sky, coalescing into a shimmering, translucent dome that began to expand outward. The planet, Zephyr's mental voice was filled with awe. It's alive. It's joining the fight. Lyra's mind reeled at the implication. The entire planet was a living entity, one that had been dormant for millennia, waiting for this moment. This is our chance, Lyra shouted. Everyone, focus your energy on the spire. Human, ethery, doesn't matter. Give it everything you've got. What followed was a moment of unity unlike anything Lyra had ever experienced. Humans channeled their strength, their will, their very life force into the spire. Ethery poured their ethereal energies into it, and beneath it all, the steady pulse of the living planet, lending its ancient power to the cause. The spire blazed with light, the dome of energy expanding faster and faster. It slammed into the void sovereign, which writhed and thrashed against it. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed the barrier might break. But then, with a final surge of combined energy, the dome solidified. The void sovereign shrieked, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It began to dissolve, drawn back into the tear along with every trace of void corruption. The tear itself began to shrink, reality knitting itself back together. With a final anticlimactic pop, it vanished entirely. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then, as the realization of what they had accomplished sank in, cheers erupted from human and ethery alike. Lyra sank to her knees, exhausted but elated. They had done it. Against all odds, they had faced down a cosmic horror and emerged victorious. As the celebration continued around her, Lyra felt a gentle mental touch. Zephyr floated down beside her, the ethery's form glowing softly. "You have done what we thought impossible, Captain Lyra Chen." Zephyr's mental voice was filled with gratitude and respect. "You and your people have saved not just our world, but countless others." Lyra smiled tiredly. "We did it together, Zephyr. Human, ethery, and apparently, the planet itself. I guess the Forerunners knew what they were doing with that prophecy after all." As the twin suns of the alien world began to rise, bathing the battlefield in golden light, Lyra looked out at the mixed group of humans and ethery. They had come here as crash survivors, stranded on an unknown world. Now, they were heroes, the saviors of a planet, and perhaps the entire galaxy. Whatever challenges lay ahead, repairing their ship, establishing formal contact with the Coalition, understanding the living planet they now called home, Lyra knew they would face them together. Human ingenuity and ethery wisdom united against the darkness. The dawn of a new era had begun, and Lyra Chen couldn't wait to see what it would bring. Triumph and discovery. In the days following their victory over the void, a sense of cautious optimism settled over the combined human and ethery population. The skies had cleared, returning to their beautiful violet hue, and the crystalline landscapes glittered under the light of the twin suns. But more than the physical changes, there was a palpable shift in the energy of the planet itself, a sense of renewal and awakening. Captain Lyra Chen stood at the entrance of the Spire of Containment, now a beacon of hope rather than a last-ditch weapon. She watched as teams of humans and ethery worked together, studying the ancient Forerunner technology with newfound purpose. "It's remarkable, isn't it?" Ravi said, joining her. The chief engineer's eyes gleamed with excitement. "Every day we're uncovering new secrets. The Forerunner's understanding of physics, of the very fabric of reality. It's beyond anything we could have imagined." Lyra nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "And to think, none of this would have been possible if we hadn't crashed here. Funny how the universe works sometimes." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Zephyr, the ethery leader gliding gracefully towards them. "Captain," Engineer Patel, We have made a significant discovery. I believe you will want to see this." Intrigued, Lyra and Ravi followed Zephyr into the heart of the spire. In the central chamber, a massive holographic display flickered to life, showing a map of the galaxy. But not as they knew it. This can't be right," Ravi muttered, his brow furrowed in confusion. Lyra understood his disbelief. The map showed their galaxy, yes, but it was vastly different from the star charts they knew. Entire sectors were missing, while others that should have been empty space teemed with stars and planets. "It is not wrong, but rather, it is complete," Zephyr explained. "What you are seeing is a map of the galaxy as it truly is, including regions hidden by the void and areas that exist in other phases of reality." The implications were staggering. Lyra's mind raced with the possibilities. "Are you saying there are entire civilizations, whole sectors of the galaxy that we've been unable to see or reach because of these void-affected areas?" Zephyr's mental voice resonated with excitement. "Precisely. And with the knowledge left behind by the Forerunners, combined with ethery energy manipulation and human ingenuity, we may be able to bridge these gaps." Ravi was already moving around the holographic display, muttering calculations and theories. "If we can adapt this technology to our ships, to our long-range sensors, Captain, this could revolutionize space exploration. We could open up whole new avenues of the galaxy." Lyra felt a surge of exhilaration. This was why she had joined the Coalition fleet. To explore, to discover, to push the boundaries of what was known. And now, they stood on the precipice of an adventure beyond their wildest dreams. But reality quickly tempered her excitement. "We still need to figure out how to contact the Coalition," she reminded them. "We've been out of communication for months. For all they know, we're dead." As if on cue, a young ensign burst into the chamber, out of breath and eyes wide with excitement. "Captain, we've done it. We've established contact with Coalition Command." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Using a combination of Forerunner technology, ethery energy amplification, and good old-fashioned human determination, they had managed to boost their communications array enough to punch a signal through to Coalition space. The response was immediate. Relief at finding the Horizon's crew alive quickly turned to amazement as Lyra began to explain their discoveries. Orders came down from the highest levels of Coalition Command. "Hold position, continue research, and prepare for the arrival of a diplomatic envoy." As news spread through the human and ethery population, a feeling of anticipation and nervous energy took hold. This was more than just a rescue. It was the dawn of a new era of galactic exploration and cooperation. In the weeks that followed, Lyra watched with pride as her crew worked tirelessly alongside their ethery allies. They began the monumental task of translating Forerunner knowledge into practical applications, made breakthroughs in energy manipulation that promised to revolutionize everything from space travel to medicine, and deepen their understanding of the living planet they now called home. The day the Coalition diplomatic fleet arrived was one of celebration. As the sleek ships descended through the atmosphere, their hulls gleaming in the alien sunlight, Lyra stood with Zephyr and her senior staff, ready to greet the new arrivals.